waste heat into the atmosphere in BC than the total amount of electricity used provincially. So there are opportunities to capture this waste heat. And I'm going to talk about a couple of ones that I'm aware of, and I'm sure that there's many more.
Welcome to Metro Vancouver's 2011 Future of the Region's Sustainability Dialogue Series, Energy Resiliency, Meeting the Challenge. And thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Peter Holt, and I'm your moderator for today's dialogue. Against a backdrop of climate change, unpredictable energy prices, and the threat of peak oil, this dialogue will explore the people, the partnerships, the targets and the strategies necessary for addressing energy volatility and building regional resiliency. With our 5 distinguished panelists, we will discuss the following questions. What strategies and alternative energy solutions hold the most promise for developing a most resilient system? What innovative actions are currently being taken to help shape a more sustainable energy future? And what is the role for policymakers, investors, government bodies, academia, and, of course, the private sector? There'll be a brief presentation of about 5 minutes from each of our 5 panelists, followed by a free-ranging discussion. Our discussion uses a format based on dialogue, which means that we ask participants, that's you, to pose questions and comments that seek to understand the many different perspectives on today's issue, rather than necessarily taking one position over another. But now to our speakers. We will lead off with Guy Dauncey, the president of the BC Sustainable Energy Association. Guy is a writer, a speaker, and an organizer, and has authored and co-authored 9 books, including the award-winning The Climate Challenge, 100 Solutions to Global Warming. Guy. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, since it's after lunch. I want to start off by saying that climate change is real. The fact that it's been not in the news recently and that there's a feeling like, oh my goodness, the science is just as real as it ever was. The rest of the world is continuing to make progress on the solutions to climate change. It's only in North America that there's been a sort of sense that, well, you know, it doesn't really matter, or maybe it's a conspiracy, or maybe it's not true at all. Climate change is real. The flooding that's happening in Bangkok today is real. And the trajectory we're on, which is to anywhere between 4 and 6 degree temperature increase within the lifetime of our grandchildren, is real. And the geology of the past tells us that the last time the world's temperature was 3 degrees warmer, the sea level was 25 meters higher. Not 25 inches, 25 meters. If you look at Metro Vancouver as a whole, Richmond, Surrey, Delta, Tolson, the I-5, the harbour, all of the commercial facilities are all at extreme risk. Our whole commercial viability of the region is at risk if we don't find a way globally to address this. I mean, even if the whole of Metro Vancouver went green overnight, we wouldn't stop climate change. So we've got to inspire the rest of the world to do really well. So it comes down to being about energy. And energy is about heat, transport, and electricity, the 3 functions for which we've used fossil fuels in the past. The future of heat is basically for single-family dwellings in our climate here, air source heat pumps. Super efficiency for your homes, retrofitting to sort of squeeze out all the wastage, and then air source heat pumps work extremely well in our climate, give you a good payback, and there's a lot of people using them already. For multifamily buildings, apartments, condominiums, it's got to be district heat system. And the energy, we can get the energy for district heat out of our zero waste strategy, out of the flow of organic wastes and out of our sewage. There's energy in both sewage and in organic wastes. And I believe there's a report put out by the Fidelis Group that actually spells out how you can use integrated resource recovery to use that energy to put into a district heat system around the various buildings. For transport, fundamentally, you want to be thinking about maximizing walking, then cycling, and transit in that order. And walking is all about urban design. The more attractive the urban design, the more attractive the walking spaces, the lingering spaces, the more people will want to walk. Cycling, you may think that makes no sense on the North Shore, but how many of you have been on an electric bicycle? Show of hands right now. Electric bicycles, pedal-assisted electric bicycles, turn the hills into the flatlands. It's like going across the prairies when you're on the slope. It's amazing. You just click on the drive and the hills vanish. And the cost of running an electric bike is almost zero. So you've got electric bicycles with shared community electric bicycles, as they're now doing in Paris, electric cars and electric car sharing. And for both the bikes and the cars, bike sharing and car sharing at the neighborhood level. It's called peer-to-peer sharing. When astonishing things happen, you don't need to buy an extra vehicle. You go onto your smartphone, find out which neighbor's got one, and take their car. And all the costings are built into the stuff like that. You come to electricity, well, 90% of our electricity is green already, so we really, on one level, don't need to think about it much. But the solar revolution is inevitably coming. It is sweeping across the world, going to starting in the areas with the highest electricity prices, where the payback is fast. Within 20 years, the payback in British Columbia will be under 20 years. So there's no reason why every house shouldn't be, on a south-facing North Shore, covering its south-facing roof with solar panels, with a well-financed, payback built into it. So the logical thing there is to all new properties, and every retrofit ideally, pre-wire them for solar voltaics and pre-plumb them for solar hot water, so you're ahead of the game, so it's cheaper to do that installation. Solar hot water works right now, especially if you've got a family full of teenage girls for showering all the time. Maybe more efficient to train them not to shower so much, but does it always work, right? So then the question is the how of this, and without citizen engagement, it doesn't happen. You've got to have a majority on council or councils. You've got to have supportive staff, but you must have a supportive community group in each of the municipalities to drive the agenda and make it happen. So I think we need a future heat and district heat committee, a future transport committee, and a future solar committee, because there's a lot of other solar applications, solar lighting, solar walls, solar hot water, to drive the agenda. Because at City Hall, you're always busy. There's stuff falling off your desk. You've got to have the citizens driving the agenda for the vision, saying, I care about our grandchildren. I care about what we're going to do here. Let's make this change happen, and let's be excited about this future. 5 minutes. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Guy. Next is Paul Austin. Paul is the Regional Director of Partnerships for Sustainable Development Technology Canada, where he focuses on relationship development between the financial sector, industry, government, and non-government stakeholders. Thank you, Paul.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to Metrovan for the opportunity to discuss clean technology. My name is Paul Austin. I'm based here in Vancouver. STDC is a not-for-profit created by the Government of Canada and funded by the Government of Canada. We've been in operation for about 10 years, and we've committed over $500 million in non-dilutive funding to 223 pre-commercial clean technology demonstration projects across Canada. As a policy instrument of the Government of Canada, STDC funds demonstration projects. We partner with the private sector, and our funding buys down the risk to get these pre-commercial technologies into the market. So today our planet is experiencing rising affluence and increasing populations, which in turn is increasing the demand on our reserves of finite resources. The confluence of increasing demand on our resources and rising affluence in Asia and other parts of the world is causing three major problems in the fields of energy, waste, and water. Clean technology, or clean tech, is about applying innovation and finding solutions to these three problems. We are in a very unique position in British Columbia. Our neighbors are the two largest economies in the world, China and the United States, and we have vast quantities of the resources they need: lumber, gas, non-ferrous metals, coal, etc. The sound bites and recent stats from China are incredible. 500,000 people migrating to the coast every 4 months. Construction of a new coal-fired power plant every week. And now, in the few short years, dominance of solar and wind technology manufacturing. To accommodate this new affluence means significant challenges and opportunities in energy, waste, and water, both here in BC and in China. When we drill down and talk about applying innovation to any one of energy, waste, and water, we quickly discover that they are very interrelated problems. There are many types of innovation, and we can talk about applying innovation to the problem of energy supply and energy demand. We can talk about nanomaterials, we can talk about new chemistries, and we can talk about information communication technology innovations. Energy can be divided into upstream and downstream. For upstream, I will speak about power generation and leave the topic of fuels aside. Nuclear, coal, oil and gas account for 85% of the global energy mix, and the remaining 15% is divided among a collection of renewables. We need government policy to increase and stimulate the percentage share of renewables in the energy mix. Power generation tends to be capital intensive. Big physical assets and information communication technology has a long history of innovation, and long before we coined the term clean tech. But I would like to mention the recent advances in programmable logic control systems that has enabled a Burnaby company to take a new approach to fusion at a fraction of the cost of earlier attempts. In the spirit of full disclosure, General Fusion is one of the companies SDDC has supported. It is our single largest project. Advances in information communication technologies will allow General Fusion to activate with micro precision a large array of pistons, which in turn will create an acoustic wave collapsing a spinning volume of liquid lead into a vortex, creating, for an instance, the heat of the sun. So in conclusion, I want to say the good news is that we have many examples of BC firms developing solutions for our energy, waste, and water problems, and we have a strong pipeline of innovation in British Columbia. The demand for our fund is at its highest level ever. And since the problems of energy, waste, and water are universal, we have a great opportunities to develop these knowledge-based technologies here, demonstrate they actually work in a commercial context, adopt them and implement them for our use, and then export the solutions and creates wealth and jobs for British Columbia. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Paul. Next is Joann McKenna, the Senior Project Manager responsible for BC Hydro's distributed generation team. Joann's background is in environmental policy, development and environmental assessments, emerging and innovative technologies and operational work in the energy policy sector. Joann.
Thank you for that kind introduction. I can't even remember what I've done. And thank you for the invitation, Metro Van, to speak at this dialogue. So I started off by thinking, well, what does resiliency mean? So I looked it up in the dictionary. I did not Google it. And actually the definition is the ability to recover from setbacks, the ability to spring back quickly into shape after being bent, stretched, or deformed. So pretty much not unlike working for BC Hydro right now. But when we look at resiliency from an energy context, what it conjures up are some other considerations, such as diversity of supply, wise management of existing assets, the optimization of our grid, and the consideration of low-risk investments. For this dialogue series, I'm going to focus mostly on energy resiliency as it relates at a municipal or community level. And under this context, I'm going to look at a typical, or what we would consider a typical energy planning hierarchy, with a primary focus on using energy more effectively and efficiently. There are sort of four prongs to this approach. The first one is reducing demand. The second is reusing waste heat. The third is renewable heat sources to heat buildings and hot water. And then renewable energy for electricity. With respect to reducing demand, BC Hydro has a variety of programs under the PowerSmart program. And those programs look at incenting more efficient technologies, replacing existing infrastructure or technology that our large industrial customers might have, and replacing those with more efficient turbines or boilers. The programs also look at marketing different behaviors. We also provide resources to help organizations change the way they manage energy. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. At a community scale, we co-fund community energy and emissions plans. We identify key opportunities for driving down electricity usage, and we currently co-fund 10 energy managers across BC. And these are the folks that will help work with your planners, work with the staff at your municipalities to implement key policies that will help you reduce your electricity use. With respect to waste heat, according to an NRCan study, we release more waste heat into the atmosphere in BC than the total amount of electricity used provincially. So there are opportunities to capture this waste heat. And I'm going to talk about a couple of ones that I'm aware of, and I'm sure that there's many more. One good example at a district level is the River District development in East Vancouver. It's looking to heat 7 million square feet of residential and commercial development, and it plans to use the waste heat from the Burnaby Waste to Energy facility to actually do this. Another example is a small project up at the UBC campus that's again looking to use waste heat to heat their buildings using an innovative technology. Now these are small and maybe you might think isolated examples, but really they're just not. There's more that we need to do. And I think the question that we need to ask ourselves is what other opportunities do exist in our communities before we go to a new electricity fuel or other use. The third prong is the utilization of waste heat for buildings and hot water. And Guy talked a lot about this, so I'll keep my comments brief. But essentially, this is an opportunity for us to look at heating our buildings and our office buildings and our residential as well. There are some examples, again, close by. There's a housing project up at SFU. There's also the new Surrey City Centre that's looking at a district energy system at their library and the City Hall. Those are two good examples of what can be done, and it's still cost effective. The fourth prong is one that I'm most comfortable, or I know most about, and that's promoting the use of renewable electricity. BC Hydro has a number of opportunities where it can do that. It does this through different ways on the supply side and the demand side of the equation. On the demand side, what we can do is we provide capital investment to replace existing and aging equipment with more efficient equipment. We also provide incentives for customers who utilize waste byproducts, so whether it's steam or waste hydrogen or wood waste. This enables that customer to self-generate, and this self-generation can either be used to offset their existing load or to sell that excess energy back into the grid, which will then become a revenue stream either way. I'd be happy to provide more information. I have a colleague here, Robin Wark, who knows all of this information quite intimately. I'd be happy to follow up with you after this panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joann. Next is Alex Boston, Senior Planner, Climate and Energy Services with HB Lannock and Golder Associates. And for those who don't know, HB Lannock and Golder Associates have merged, which is correct. Alex advises government, business and non-profits on climate protection and sustainable energy strategies. And he works with a team that has pioneered high-impact energy and emission modeling and mapping. So I'd like to introduce Alex Boston.
It's a real pleasure to be here, and kudos to Metro for reframing the debate on climate change. If we look around the world at jurisdictions that have made deep emission reductions, none of them have done it motivated by climate change. And the biggest motivator for taking action is on energy resiliency. And those are Scandinavian countries, Germanic countries, also countries like Brazil. Those are the countries that we've seen step changes in greenhouse gas emissions. And it's as a result overwhelmingly to pursue energy resiliency. It might not be framed as energy resiliency, but it's about energy security. And that's really important, I think, when we think about how do we advance this agenda in British Columbia. We have tragically placed all our marbles on a climate change pillar, and that climate change pillar is very, very vulnerable. We have to look at all of the other co-benefits for taking action on climate change. It's about livability. It's about reducing obesity because we're going to have more active lifestyles. It's about improving air quality because we're going to be combusting significantly less fossil fuel in this region. And that's an important context for how we advance this bigger agenda. I concur with Guy that the threats for climate change to us are huge. We're seeing a doubling of infrastructure damage in our municipalities every 5 to 10 years as a result of more volatile weather. And that is affecting all of us. There's 50 of you here. There's another 199,950 neighbors that you have on the North Shore. Collectively, we spend here on the North Shore $500 million on energy every year. The vast majority of that money leaves the North Shore. A conservation, efficiency, and renewables agenda is about keeping more of that money on the North Shore, more of that money in our communities. In the next 20 years, we're going to see some significant changes to transportation. The first thing we should be doing is making sure from a land use perspective that we create beautiful environments for transit, and for walkability. And we should be framing this, once again, around healthy communities. What can we do as municipalities? Build within our existing urban fabric. What can we be doing as developers? It's building those beautiful mixed-use, compact environments. Density has a bad rep, and one of the reasons it does is because we build a lot of bad density. Design is important. The vast majority of energy consumption over the next 50 years is going to be from our existing building stock. It's not going to be our new building stock, and that's where the vast majority of greenhouse gas emissions are also going to be coming from. We need an aggressive retrofit agenda, and this is about jobs, and it's about entry-level jobs. It's also about really skilled jobs. What we need is some kind of a financial instrument that allows us to actually pay back the capitalization for retrofitting all of our existing buildings. We can improve efficiency in the order of 30% for buildings that are older than the 1980s. And there's usually a payback of 2 to 12 years. Moving on to another big opportunity that was underscored before, and it's not smart meters, it's dumb heaters. It's old technologies for renewable heat, solar thermal. Every municipality should be taking advantage of the solar ready bylaw that exists to ensure that we're taking opportunity on a long-term basis for renewable heat. Tragically, the Clean Energy Act, the BC Energy Plan addresses electricity, addresses oil and gas, but the vast majority of energy consumption in our households is for space conditioning, so heating and hot water. The last opportunity is aggressively advancing standards for new buildings. We should be establishing this building seriously as a green building powerhouse, both for domestic and international opportunities.
Well, thank you, Alex. I think there was a bit of passion there, I think we all heard. And finally, we have Ken Tolson. Ken is the city manager for the city of North Vancouver, and in 2005 he was appointed to the board of directors for the Lonsdale Energy Corporation, where he serves both as chairman and as president. Ken.
PowerPoints. I loved PowerPoints, but one of the things that I couldn't do here was to handle one, so I got a couple of items here for you. Critical thing is to keep it easy. I'm not going to talk about a lot of items here because the panel has been mentioning it. I want to keep it very, very simple, because if it isn't simple, it isn't going to happen. We did a study back in the 1990s, and back in the 1990s, we found out for our area, the city of North Van, 50% of the greenhouse gas emissions was coming from a single source: homes, heating homes. So I'd just like to talk about that. And the first prop I'd like to raise is this one here, an iPhone. If you buy one, or a BlackBerry, doesn't have to be a phone, whatever it is, but generally speaking, these last about a year to a year and a half. And if you buy one in 2009, by a year afterwards, Apple or whoever it is comes out with something different, new. And you will find that probably the product is 100% better, faster. That's the way that things happen here. This is a toaster that I bought. The price of this toaster is $14.99. The toaster really hasn't altered since 1900. If you went back to 1900s, a toaster would cost you more, but it still is that. Now, if you heat your condo or heat your home with electric baseboard heating, you're basically using this, a toaster. That is it. And when you go to Europe and talk to the Europeans and saying, we're heating our homes by baseboard heatings, you're really saying you're using something that was done in the early 1900s. Your cell phone you keep for a year and a half, and you say throw it out. So what we said to council, and council was pushing us as saying, get off of the baseboard heating, because once you build a condo and you put in that, there is no way to alter it. Condos last for how long? 50 years, 60 years? That's it. So that means for the rest of the life of the building, baseboard heating or toasters is what is going to be used to heat that up. So we went to council and we said, switch them off of that. That's going to cost money, but council said yes. The goal was for anything new coming in, baseboard heating was banned. You had to hook up to the city, to the system that we had. The next one we had was users, volume. Get it up there, because any of the systems that we're hearing here, if you want to use the new types of heat out there, if you don't have the volume, it isn't going to happen. One home in your area or one condo in your city, municipality is not going to make it happen. You got to get everybody on, but you got to start off. So keep it simple, keep it small. As long as you got the buildings hooked up, then you could pump heat in there. Now, once you get the buildings hooked up to a system, the source of heat can alter. But if you don't have the buildings hooked up, it isn't going to work. And that goes back to 1907, when the city was founded back in the early 1900s. The council then says it was foolish for everybody to get water from a river or a stream and things like that. So what did they do? They put in a water basis, the system. Sewage also. We couldn't handle that separately, so everybody hooked on. And that's what we've done here. The city of North Van, we got 2,000 people on it now, condos on it now, and it's going up by about 1,000 per annum now. So every year, 1,000 people are on it. The benefit is, as I pointed out, is gas is using the system now. We're using basically 90% of that. But there's other types of systems out there that we can actually use to heat up the water, whether it's the waste heat that we're talking about or things like that. I'm trying to condense it all in a couple of minutes. This is something that we go to council with and take 1 hour about. So I'm trying to condense it all, but thank you very, very much.